Let's talk more about that briefing by the Electricity Minister today. Bring in energy expert Professor Sampson Mamphweli. A very good evening to you, Professor. Always good to speak to you. So the Electricity Minister in the update today said that he believes we are now through the worst of winter. I wonder if that's not a premature assessment, considering that they don't have control over the weather and how that will impact demand.
Good evening to you, Thembi. Yeah, it's a difficult one. Yes, he's correct in saying that we are west. We've gone past the west through the winter. But what we are predicting is the fact that going into the summer, we are still going to go through a rough ride because as opposed to what used to happen, we've got a lot of factories that closed down, trying to run away from the high the tariffs, the high cost of tariffs during winter, and they're starting now to ramp up production, which was partly the problem when we experienced stage 6 load shedding, because we hit about 34,000 megawatts peak demand, which was predicted, but it took some time for us to get to that, because most of the factories closed down, running away from the high tariffs, and then basically focusing on maintenance. So while we are through the most difficult times, and I agree with the minister, I must caution that we still expect that if nothing drastic happens, we will still go through a bit of a rough ride as soon as we enter summer.
And it's interesting, you hear the minister say we're through the worst of what was expected, shall I say, over the winter months. But also, he then cautions that we're likely to see a rough couple of months ahead because refurbishment delays at the Kuberg station, 2 units there, those are likely to persist and cause problems into 2024. For those of us who aren't too familiar with Kuberg and what these 2 units add to what is available in the electricity mix currently, put in context the seriousness of these delays for that, the ability to keep the lights on.
So those 2 units give us close to 2,000 megawatts of base load. And that's quite important, because the base load is what we need, and then we support it with renewables. So the 2 units combined, they help us avoid 2 stages of load shedding in short.
So without them, where would that leave us in terms of the predictability of the grid's performance?
So without them, and those 2 units, when they are working, they are highly reliable. They're extremely reliable. And as things stand, the biggest problem that we have is the reliability of the coal fleet. So we lose reliability down to about 2,000 megawatts, 2 stages of load shedding, if the 2 are delayed in terms of returning to service. When we have further breakdowns, as things stand, we're sitting at about 18,000 megawatts in terms of breakdown, and you add those 2 units, that takes us close to 20,000 megawatts. That's quite massive. So we need to return some of the coal fleet back to service. Mm-hmm. And I was encouraged when you mentioned that within the next month or so, we will have close to 6,000 megawatts returning, because one of the biggest challenges has been basically to return the units to service back on time, which is why some of us called for the national state of disaster that was declared and then abolished, and the fact that we didn't have for the longest of time reliability maintenance. So when these systems are returned to service, they come back late and they are not reliable in terms of performance. It's either you get other units breaking down elsewhere, or the same units breaking down. So what some of us were calling for is basically to say, let us renew these units. Today the minister talked about one of the biggest problems being the boiler tube failures. And when you get to that, it tells you a story about a system that was not properly maintained for a very long time, because that's when you start to have boiler tube failures.
Would I be right, Professor, to suggest that it also speaks to project mismanagement, that there's a constant delay at Eskom, when it comes to keeping deadlines, there's a failure to complete work, be it refurbishment, repairs, maintenance, on time?
So that has got a number of layers on it. One of them is the fact that the Eskom procurement process itself is quite laborious. So for Eskom to get parts on time, to get parts, it takes a lot of time, because they need to go through this laborious procurement process, which is why the national state of disaster was necessary to try and deal with some of these matters, because then you could then do rapid sourcing of parts directly from original equipment manufacturers. Because as things stand, Eskom, when they need a laptop, they need to go through a supplier who will get it from a middleman of a middleman of a middleman at some point. And by the time they get to the actual supply and then they get the part that they require to be delivered, there's a lot of delays in the process. But if we are in a national state of disaster, for instance, they could then go directly to the original equipment manufacturers, who are the manufacturers of this equipment, and then get them on standby, even on standby, to say you must be on standby for fixing your boiler tubes. If you are whoever that supplies the boilers for those particular boilers, you must be on standby to supply us with diesel, if you make diesel, for instance, and all those kind of things. So those are some of the issues that need to be dealt with, which the Minister of Electricity should be seized with.
Right, and interesting, we're talking about Kuberg earlier, some breaking news that we're showing to our viewers, in fact now, a statement from Eskom. I don't know if you've seen it, Prof, so I'll read it to you verbatim. It says here that Eskom and Mr. Jan Oberhozer, are parting ways by mutual agreement. His last day at the utility will be on the 31st of July. They say he was on a fixed-term contract to provide support at the Kuberg nuclear power station long-term operation and Kusile power station projects, and then they go on then to wish him well, etc. Will his departure hinder in any way the ability to get this work done and get it done timeously?
So Jan is one of the very experienced engineers that Eskom has ever had. Eskom still has quite a lot of experienced engineers, but if you look at the nuclear side of things, we've lost quite a lot of capacity from South Africa. Most of the people left the country for overseas kind of projects. So for me, losing one such a highly regarded, very experienced engineer at this particular point in time is not a good idea. My view is that people like Jan and many other engineers who are experienced are needed, and they need to be given contracts. They need to come back to Eskom and try and assist the nation in order for us to get out of the current situation that we were faced with. I knew about his departure since last year, that he was gonna leave Eskom by the end of July.
Yes, so he was going to retire as COO, and then he was asked to stay on a contract basis then to assist with Kuberg and Kusile specifically. You mentioned the issue of bringing back experienced people to come in and assist Eskom. It was a conversation that was going on even at the level of the Public Enterprises Department, I think, in the last year, 2 years or so. Yet when you speak to bodies in the engineering space, they say nothing has turned on that. So why has nothing turned?
It boils down to the implementation of the country's plans. So far the Minister of Electricity has been given the responsibility to implement the President's Energy Action Plan, and part of that would then be to bring back some of that capacity, also to capacitate Eskom. The biggest issue has been money. If you look at the coal fleet as things stand, Eskom has done root cause analysis. The Minister of Electricity spoke to that today. They know exactly what is the problem. They know how much is needed to fix the problem. The problem has been the money, and I think there was a lost opportunity when government came up with the appropriation bill for focusing mainly on the Eskom debt. That was good. I think for now, Eskom needs to come up with another bill. The government needs to come up with another bill and focus on provision of funding to fix mainly the coal fleet, because nobody is going to give Eskom money to fix the coal fleet. And even the government appropriation bill and all the conditions that are around the bailout, so to speak, on the side of the debt. They are saying that Eskom is not allowed to go and borrow, but Eskom must use their balance sheet to fix the coal fleet. And the balance sheet of Eskom, what we have now and what we know is that in the past financial year, they posted 20 billion rand in the negative, and they need currently 130 billion rand to fix the current coal fleet.
Professor Sampson Mamphweli, always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you, as ever, for your time.